Adam Taxin with Daniel Greenfield, Sultan Kanish, talking about his column for Wednesday, June 27, 2012, a day which could also be known as the eve of the Supreme Court's decision on Obamacare, and also not really the subject of this column, the vote on Eric Holder and contempt. Daniel's columns can be found at sultankanish.blogspot.com, and he joins me now. Daniel, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Okay, I know I shouldn't ask how you doing. Michael Savage always tells callers never to ask that, but I just felt like asking that right now. What should we be thinking about in the, 15, 18 hours until we get a decision from the Supreme Court? What are the thoughts about, just the general mindset and the general freedom versus slavery issues that people should be thinking about at this time?
Right now, a lot of people are thinking like this issue is out of our hands. It's up to the Supreme Court. Whatever the Supreme Court decides, that's how it's going to be. It's out of our hands. We're like sitting there with the lottery tickets, waiting to hear if our number is called or not. And the larger point I wanted to make is that it's not the case. The Supreme Court is the final legal review, but in the end, every law comes down to whether the people support or oppose the law. And the American people have very clearly spoken out that they oppose this law. So whatever the Supreme Court decides, if they remove the mandate, very good. If they don't, nothing is fundamentally changed because this man has been rejected by the American people.
Well, what about the roughly half the population that supports Barack Obama? They support it, even though a lot of them don't pay taxes.
Still no. There's opposition to the mandate, I think, by around 63%.
Okay. So
not that many people are fans of being forced to buy health insurance.
Of course, but half the country doesn't even pay taxes. So who knows?
Well, this is effectively a tax nonetheless, and most people are not really aware of how many taxes they pay. For example, Universal Service Fund. Pretty much everybody who has a phone pays that.
Right. What this?
Not everybody's paying taxes.
Yeah. You know what this reminds me of? Reminds me of the night before the OJ verdict came down. It's just, I know it's not a parallel or anything, but, we just aren't sure what's going to happen. We think what's going to happen, and a lot of people are going to be surprised by what happens on one side or the other. Is that a fair analogy? Provoke any thoughts with you?
No doubt, but I think what people really need to remember is that we have the power in the end. The power isn't just in the hands of the courts, so this isn't like the OJ verdict.
Right. Well, what in practical terms does that mean? Say we're...
It's a law that affects every one of us, and it's down to every one of us.
Well, what does that mean in practical terms? First of all, if it is overturned, for example, won't a lot of people become complacent?
Some people will, but I think it'll actually re-energize the base. Because right now, if the Supreme Court strikes down the mandate, there'll be the sense, okay, we won this, and we don't have to pay as much attention. If the mandate remains, it remains a permanent irritant. It becomes an inescapable question of what do we do about this? And
what if Obamacare is upheld tomorrow? Then what's our practical step-by-step process?
First of all, there's lots of action still happening at the state level. There's individual actions that people can take also. Obviously, complying or not complying is an individual choice. But if enough people don't comply, then that sends a very powerful message. Now
let me move on to your more general point. You write later, we are in the midst of another civil war. Can you talk about that a little bit?
The original civil war was fought with bullets. This one is being fought. This is a regulatory war. We've got another slavery debate, except the debate isn't over racial slavery, it's over economic slavery. It's over, do we have the right to our property, do we have the right to our earnings, do we have the right to our bodies? And that's really what the whole Obamacare mandate debate comes down to. Can the government just say, do a trade-off with a bunch of companies and tell them, okay, we'll give you the population of the United States, and you give us a discount?
What do you mean by giving the population of the United States to insurance companies? Those are pretty strong words.
Well, it's effectively slavery. It's compelling everybody to get in hock to a bunch of companies as a trade-off for the companies doing something for the government. That's effectively slavery. You're saying that we're going to turn over this population, this base of customers who aren't voluntarily buying your product. We're going to turn them over to you. we're going to compel them to buy your product. That looks a lot like slavery to me.
Now, just for the sake of argument, what would you say to Al Sharpton and the race carders of this world who would say, how dare you compare it to something as devastating as slavery? You just don't understand what our ancestors go through, or something like that.
Well, for starters, I would say that slavery in this country did not begin with black people. It began with white people. It began with people who were there unindentured, and then the law found ways to keep renewing that indentured over and over again until some of those people actually rebelled, and African slavery suddenly started to seem more cost-effective. You know, we're going back to that kind of slavery again.
Finally, on a different note, it's not the topic of your column, but I'm wondering if you can just give your thoughts on the Eric Holder contempt vote tomorrow.
Well, I think much of the country already holds him in contempt, but certainly holding him in contempt at the congressional level is a good step, and it's an important challenge. And it's something that's hard to fight back because Holder's very clearly in the wrong. The Obama administration here is very clearly in the wrong. Their actions are not defensible. And the only defense that liberals have come up with is to keep saying over and over again, this is about politics. And when they say this is about politics, it means we have absolutely no defense against this except to accuse the other side of cynicism.
Well, they also have the argument that it's about racism, too, of course. But
well, naturally, everything is about racism.
Yeah. All right, Daniel Greenfield, the column is The Ball in Our Court, and or is it The Ball is in Our Court? The Ball in Our Court, I think it was. And it can be found at sultankanish.blogspot.com. Hopefully you'll get this one up pretty early in the evening as opposed to usual midnight, because this one won't have a lot of legs, but it's a very worth article.
Way before Cinderella time.
Okay. I'll talk to you soon. See ya.